Good evening, everybody. I'd like to welcome you to the regular city council meeting for October 21st. I'd like to ask everybody that can to stand as we start every meeting with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Are there any agenda additions, deletions, or amendments? Hearing none. Do we have anybody signed up to speak on citizen participation? Thank you. First speaker is Charles Clark. Welcome, sir.
Hi, how you doing?
We're doing well. Good to see you.
All right, same here. Well, my concern is we just moved to this area, and my concern is with transportation, especially for high school students. Right now, there's no transportation. My daughter attends Bowie High School, and there's no one to bring her home if she missed that bus at 3 or 2:45, whatever time the bus leaves. At that point, she has to catch the bus home. And she caught the bus home today, and it took her almost 4 hours to get home.
This is coming home from where? From Bowie High School?
From Bowie High School.
Okay.
So my concern is, are there any means of, or are they thinking about bringing some local transportation that can help out students that may stay after school, after time, so if they get involved with the sports activities or they get involved with, extracurricular activities, that they have a means to come home if parents aren't home to go and pick them up? Because I think that then they're behind the 8 ball as far as 4 hours or 3 hours or whatever it is to get home.
I certainly understand that. The city doesn't have any resources in that area. We have some small buses that move seniors and stuff around. But I tell you what, if you leave a name and an email address for me, I've got some numbers and stuff for you with the county's school board transportation people, some names and numbers and some emails, and I'll get them to you and we'll see if we can get you some answers.
I appreciate that.
Okay? No, make sure Mrs. Hernandez on there before you leave, just your full name and if you have an email address, that way I'll send you something tonight.
Appreciate it.
Thank you. Okay. That's all I have signed up to speak. But now, council, one of my favorite things to do, and that is to swear in some brand-new members of the Bowie Police Department. So, Chief, if you want to bring your folks up front, council, you want to come down the front here?
Up or down, sir?
Somebody calling people.
Do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States. And that I will be faithful. And bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland. Support the Constitution and laws thereof. And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of police officer for the city of Bowie, Maryland, according to the Constitution and laws of this state. Congratulations. An officer named Copper. Your name's not going to be Cook, right? Want to take some pictures? Yeah, come on, Your dad and I are in this special fraternity now. We're parents and pops. All right, pay attention to Pat Watson down here.
Isn't it, folks?
All right, while you guys are finishing that, on behalf of all my colleagues, I want to thank you guys for future decades serving here. But I want to take a moment to appreciate the spouses and the families here. We know this is one job in the world, it's not one person alone. They're successful, or they're most successful when they have support and friendship and everything, people that are close to them. It's a challenging job. And we know it's going to be tough sometimes, but they're not going to be there for Thanksgiving. They may be working on Christmas Day, maybe they may miss birthdays and special things. But they're doing an incredible service, they're doing a noble service, and they're joining an organization that has a remarkable reputation in the city. And they have that reputation because they got it the old-fashioned way. They've earned it. These people are very well respected in the residential community and the business community. And council, we could not be more proud of the men and women who serve this law. So you have some tough shoes to fill. You have some tough shadows to walk past. But we encourage you to do well, and we know you're going to move on. Keep your head down out there. Thank you. Please, Pat Watson, walk on the stage, or if you have something else to do with that, we won't take it personal. What do you want to say? Okay. All right, item next, we have some appointments for, and reappointments for city boards and committees. Mr. Gardner?
Yes. I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor. Yes, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to move to appoint Ms. Linda Fuller to the Administrative Review Board.
Moved and second. Any questions on or opposition? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Mr. Wolfley?
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to make a motion that we appoint Brittany Bunn to serve on the Diversity Committee, please.
Moved and second. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Opposed? Unanimous. Dr. Trout?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Mayor, I move for the appointment of Don Phillips to as a regular member of the Board of Elections.
Moved and second. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. Those folks here with us tonight? If you would join us. Oh, we can stand now. Why don't you come stand in front of them? We will swear you in and put you to work. They didn't tell you this was a 17-year job, did they?
That's okay.
All right, you just saw what we did last time. I'm going to ask you after I say aye, if you would follow your name, and we'll swear you in. I
Linda Fuller.
do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States, and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland, and support the Constitution and laws thereof, and that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of regular member of the Board of Education, election, and regular member of the Diversity Committee, and regular member of the Administrative Review Board, according to the constitutional laws of the state. Congratulations. You guys have- I have one council announcement, but I'm going to defer that to the end of the meeting. Okay. Acting City Manager, you have a report?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Byron Matthews, Finance Director for the City of Bowie, sitting in for City Manager Al Lott while he's in conference. There is no official report this evening. However, I wanted to notify the Council that the bond rating agencies, Moody's, Standard & Poor's, and Fitch, have rated our proposed bonds that will be issued later this month. All have considered them to be AAA.
Whoa! Hey, that is so cool. Just to take a moment to brag on these guys. You are living in one of only 2 municipalities in the entire state of Maryland that has a AAA bond rating. And it's because over the years, we've been very judicious and thoughtful, and I think a good husband of resources. So congratulations all. In my old neighborhood, would say you've done good.
Thank you, Mr.
Yeah, done good. All right. Consent agenda, you have items A through E. Do I have a motion? Moved by Mr. Who's second? Oh, Dr. Darrington Carter. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Unanimous. All right, Police Department update. They just left. Oh, there he is.
I started to sneak out and then looked at the agenda and realized how short it was. So before I begin, in front of you is a mug and a challenge coin from the department. It is our way of saying thanks for the many years of support. I know some of you are up for re-election, some have decided not. If you are re-elected, I'll come by and get the mug and cup and the mug and coin back from you later. We'll do the honor system. But again, we want to thank you. Some of you have been here from the very beginning, and we are what we are today due in large part to the support we get from the residents and from the council. So thank you. Moving into the report, looking at our staffing, we are authorized for 67 with actual number of 64, including 2 in the academy. So we are trying to find 3 qualified applicants to go into the next academy. Updates on the call center. We are still trying to tie in the city radios into the call center. We're having some antenna issues, but we are on track to finish within the proposed time frame. Some of our outreach efforts, we are 1 session into our Citizens Police Academy. We have a drug take-back day on Saturday from 10 to 2. We have bagels and badges over at Panera. That is on the 24th from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. We encourage folks to come by, grab some coffee, grab a bagel, and chat with us. I guess it's a good thing because we were over at Starbucks across the street, and Panera said, hey, we want you guys over here. So we are going to try over there for the first time. Looking forward to it, looking forward to seeing everything. Some of the things that we looked at police activities-wise, we're still grappling with our theft from autos, and I'll talk about that a little more in our stats and our detective reports. We did, if some of you may remember, we had a DRT, which was a directed response team. One of the things that we kind of pride ourselves on is taking a look at things time to time and seeing what works and what doesn't. The DRT, we found out we just weren't getting the results we wanted and the actions we wanted with just the DRT because they couldn't cover 7 days a week because they were one team. So what we did is we split them up into power squads. We funneled the DRT folks back into patrol and then created power shifts. So now we have power shifts 7 days a week that can still target those problem areas or citizen complaints, but at the same time now they're part of the larger squad so that they can also help with the radio calls and additional officer power as needed. And we're getting some very good results early on from the hard work by Lieutenant Rose and Lieutenant Stanley's folks. Talked about crime trends. Again, the theft from auto is a continuing problem. We're doing our best to educate. A lot of the times, face it, if you have something in your car somebody wants, they're going to take it. They're going to break the window. Our goal is to reduce those opportunities by not having things in the car that are visible. Most people are not going to take the time to break a window if there's nothing visible inside that appears to be worth stealing. I'm not trying to victim shame anybody, but we've had instances where we've had the car door open with 3 different sets of car keys inside the vehicle. And we've made numerous arrests for theft from autos. And one of the times that we had the person in the interview room, he said, we love to come to Bowie because Bowie has nice things and people don't lock their stuff up. So we are part of the problem. So we are encouraging folks to make sure they do lock their car doors, do remove valuables from, at least from sight, because people do just go down the street pulling on door handles and seeing what's inside. Again, we talked about our events. Moving on to some of the statistics and reports that we submitted. Our calls for service, which is page 1, we are on pace to be a little lower, if not exactly at what our 2018 calls for service were. So year to date, through September, we responded to 28,477 calls. That just puts us on pace or a little shy of 2018 numbers for end of year if trends continue. If we go to page 2, we look at our crime and citation statistics. Our residential burglary reports are down by 50%. Commercial burglaries are down just about the same, 50%. Assaults are down now, but we are still early in the year, so we might end up tracking a little lower or about the same as last year. Auto thefts, we might be up a little bit. Robberies, we're on pace to be about the same. Thefts, we may be a little bit higher this year by the end of the year, but again, that's due mostly to the thefts from auto. If you look at page 3, our thefts from auto, we just absolutely got destroyed in May with 44, as opposed to 16 the year before, and 61 in July, as opposed to 15 in 2018. And again, it's the crime of the moment. Our counterparts in the region are dealing with the same thing. And again, it's just a matter of what can we do to reduce the opportunity. And we've made numerous arrests, and somebody just backfills and takes their place. So we have to really make sure that whatever we can do on the front end to prevent that, we're encouraging folks to lock their valuables up. One of the things that we talk about partnerships, we did recently join Neighborhood, which is the social media aspect of the Ring doorbells. So we do have a presence there. We can have residents share video with us. Of course, it is totally on the resident's choice. We cannot get any video without permission. So if we do have an incident, we can request video for a certain time frame and a certain date. And if residents have that video and they're willing to share it, they can share it with us. Moving on to our criminal investigation section. You can look at some of the numbers, total assigned cases of 356. Out of those 356, we had 88 closed by arrest or exceptionally, and 268 are either open, suspended, or unfounded. If you look at our closure rate for the total assigned cases, year to date, it's 69% of a closure rate, which is a fairly high closure rate. Again, we closed several theft from auto cases that have plagued the city for a little bit. We did a number of search warrants, and we continue to chase down leads and investigate to our full extent. If we move to page 6, our community services overview, I'm not going to read the entire thing because it is 3 pages long, actually 4 pages long. Some of the highlights are just 32 homeowners association meetings. We present our neighborhood watches. We complete numerous tours, of course, our career days. And if you look at under event participation, it goes to almost 2 pages of what the officers are attending, being out in the community, not just HOA meetings, but almost everything up to little Jenny's birthday party we're at and we're participating in. And again, a list of upcoming events is on page 9. Speaking of upcoming events, again, I encourage everyone to follow us on our social media sites, Twitter, Facebook. Check our website. Everything that we do, we put out electronically. We try to get as much information. We have the weekly dispatch, which gives crime stats and happenings in your neighborhood. Again, we're still looking at Command Central that will allow residents to drill down by neighborhoods and by streets and see what calls for service are happening, but we're not quite there. There's some tie-in with the county that we're waiting on and some overlays of maps and capabilities, but we are working that way in our direction. As I said before, we disbanded our directed response team, but there are stats there from January through August. And one of the things that we will continue to do on the traffic side, at least, because we moved our traffic officer into the community services realm, is track citizen complaints on traffic areas, because we know that that's a lot of what we get. So if you look at page 10, it will tell you by street what we've done, how many stops we've made, how many violations we've cited. So it gives us a better opportunity to respond when someone does call a traffic complaint in. We can give them the results. Sometimes most times the traffic complaints are valid. Sometimes we're out there and we can't find anything. But we are logging the hours so that we can say that we're out there and that we're enforcing. Enforcement is not always measured by tickets. It's sometimes just measured by time and area and altering people's behavior. If you move to page 16, it's our training section. They've been very busy as well. It's a whole division of 2 people. So they are very, very active. You'll see the number of hours that they've logged to training. One of the things that we're also doing is continuing to teach our CRAZE method, or the active shooter training, not just to the employees of the city, but to religious groups and anybody else, any other group that asks for it. That's almost becoming a full-time job with them sometimes. And I will leave it at that and take any questions or follow-ups that council may have.
Well, thank you, sir. Questions of the chief? Anybody have a question? Mr. Estelle.
I do, and I can't find my glasses anywhere, Chief, so I'll just squint in your direction. But we have one particular little crime spot. You and I both know where it is. We've been exchanging communications back and forth about it. I just wanted to make sure that we followed up on that this week. I know that folks have been putting their heads together about how best to approach that situation. It's very localized, but it seems to generate 90% of the problems in this tiny little part of town that we're working on, so I just wanted to throw that out there.
Right, and I'll just real quick,
Sure.
There are things that you will see and things that you won't, and I won't go into much detail after that, but there are plans in the works, and we are following up on a couple different
I mean,
areas.
the one nice thing about Bowie is that we don't have any like massive cartels running sophisticated operations, but on the downside, it's the little ones where it's like 3 dudes who know each other that are, it's a little hard to plant an undercover cop when, you know, it's literally 3 guys. But I just want to follow up, and I appreciate your work on that. Broadly, I just appreciate everything you guys at the police department are doing. I know that you guys are stretched fairly thin, covering quite a lot of road surface right now. Then you're, working on maintaining your current number of officers, which of course is a challenge. They got court dates and injuries and things like that. So I appreciate everything you guys are doing with the numbers that you have. I was happy that we swore in 3 new officers tonight. I'm seeing Ring all over the place in Bowie these days. You guys are working with folks to be able to share, or residents are able to share video that they're capturing from Ring if they observe a crime taking place with the local police department. Appreciate you bringing that up. Are you finding that Ring is actually helpful in identifying suspects, getting video, solving crimes?
We have closed a couple cases utilizing the Ring video.
Okay.
Video doorbells, again, don't mean to shill for Ring.
Sure.
That just happens to be the social media platform that's most available. You can post any kind of video on Ring. It doesn't have to be from their system. But what we like to think that we're on the forefront of stuff, but when we first joined, we got a lot of comments of, what took you so long? So people were waiting for us to get there. It's a great way to share information. We get a lot of information shared that way. It has led to a couple of closures. If nothing else, it's also led to a couple of preventive things where they get the notification that somebody's out there before something happens. And it's a good proactive tool as well.
That's what I was going to ask next, if it seems to be even somewhat of an effective deterrent, and it sounds like it might be. I've heard this anecdotally from some residents. I'm just curious as to what your thoughts on that were, but it sounds like you think it could be a deterrent possibly in some situations.
Yeah, we got a call today for someone who wasn't home, but the Ring camera picked up someone on their doorstep, so they
That's
called it
probably
in.
me.
And, yeah, somebody door knocking, right? But again, it's anything that can be preventative and get us ahead of the game is a good thing.
Hopefully you'll get fewer calls when election season's over. Arrests for thefts, Renata. I know you guys closed a couple cases recently. I was really happy to read that. I know in the past there's always been kind of a question of, is it guys locally who are committing, or gals who are committing these crimes, or is it folks coming in from out of town? I've heard in the past that it's a little bit of both. Have you just
It is a little
observed?
bit of both. Not to get too specific, but
Sure.
we've had people that were parts of a ring, and we've had people that just didn't have money to get home after partying, so they decided to search some cars.
Oh, jeez.
So it's the full gambit, but we have had a little bit of both.
Yikes. Okay, good to know. I mean, you guys and the county and just about every other county in our area constantly post on social media and remind people to lock car doors and don't leave, gold sitting on your dashboard and things like that. Are there any other things that you find folks can do to kind of just be deterrents for folks wandering onto their driveways during the day or at night? Any particular light placement, or I mean, just any other like basic practices that we could be encouraging folks to think about to help deter
Again,
things?
it's basic stuff. It's
Yeah.
locking the doors, it's hiding the valuables, it's having your porch lights on, it's getting some kind of security system, no matter what kind it is. We still offer security surveys, so if a resident wants to have their house evaluated for possible weak spots or things they can do better, cutting shrubs away from the door, things like that, we will come out and do security surveys. We have officers that have specifically been trained for that.
So someone can call the police non-emergency line and schedule a security survey that the City of
Yes.
Bowie Police Department will conduct. That is a wonderful service that I'm very happy to learn about. Cool, I'll be sharing that.
Sure.
That's all that I had, Chief. Other than that, thank you for everything you and your department continue to do. We tremendously appreciate it, and I'm sure that my colleagues have other questions as well.
Thanks,
Thank you for being here tonight.
Mr. Wolfley.
Thank you again for your continued great service, not just yours, but the entire police community. You do a fantastic job. We continue to get strong, positive response from the community as I've been out talking to folks the last several months. So congratulations to ongoing good work and appreciation from the community. A couple questions for you. We mentioned the Ring Neighborhood app and the video camera situation. Where are we with our support for purchasing video cameras? I believe we were in the midst of developing a program for that.
We were developing a program. At the end of the day, the money just wasn't there budget-wise. We had other priorities. It was a good proactive thing, but when we start to crunch numbers, there's only so much money to go around in the budget. So we're looking at it again. We'll try again in 2021.
Thank you. We saw 3 officers sworn in this evening, which is great. Can you speak a little bit about the current hiring circumstances in terms of has it gotten any better or worse? I know the last time we spoke about this, it was tough finding good quality recruits, and so I'm pleased that we have 3 this evening, but I know we have some vacancies. Can you speak a little bit to what's happening in that marketplace?
Sure. What we've done, we've tried to streamline our process a little bit. So we've actually started to combine when you do the physical agility. If you pass physical agility, you can take the written. We've begun to self-administer our test versus having the company administer it for us, so we could streamline and make things more convenient for the applicants. And while we have them there, get as much done as we possibly can. Recruitment, the numbers are going up a little bit, but you're still talking law of averages between our applicants and those that we deem are qualified to serve the residents of Bowie.
Okay. Well, thank you, and I know we had 3 excellent quality candidates this evening, and I think we need to maintain that level of attention and focus on quality over quantity, and let's keep at it. I appreciate that. One final question. Command Central, I understand from your early comments that it's not quite yet ready for prime time. I've been looking for some statistics on geography for crime stats. Is there something you can give me? I mean, you may not have it this evening, but is there something you can give sometime over the next week or two that would have some geographic disbursement?
We can certainly look into it. Are you looking at a specific area or?
Just general. I mean, I'm always interested in my district,
Right.
but just in general. I'm not looking to create work, but I know that you have to work your cases and your staff and your assignments and so forth. So there must be some existing information on the geographic disbursement of, crime hotspots and things like that.
We can certainly put something together for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Trell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Chief, Deputy Chief, I want to thank you about the presentation that you made. Also want to follow through with the ring. Glad to see that we've gone with the ring system, because I know for Christmas, that was a Christmas present that my son gave my wife and I, and he even installed it. And we use it quite frequently. I mean, even when we're out of town and we get the buzz, we've got it that it rings on all of our stuff. She rings on her cell phone, my cell phone, her iPad, my iPad. So we use it very significantly, and plus we communicate with neighbors too, because there's the neighborhood feature on it that you had mentioned earlier. So I'm glad that we're on board with that. I do want to bring up something that I had talked about before, and that is a next door neighbor, to see where we are with that. Because I remember the last time I think you said that you were looking at seeing if something could be done with that.
Oh, no, we've been on Nextdoor for
Okay.
a while.
Okay, so because I know Nextdoor, when you look at Nextdoor, and District 4 has a Nextdoor, like it does for Pointer Ridge, and then I think District 3 too has a Nextdoor. So I'm not sure how yours, are you tying in with all of the Nextdoors from the various areas? Because if you just do Pointer Ridge, on Pointer Ridge, I think that's something like about, I forgot the exact number, but if you go expand it, it gets up to like about 5,000. Whereas if you just do Pointer Ridge, it's substantially lower than that, maybe about around 400, 300, 400, something like that. So I'm just trying to figure out, are you connected with all of the Nextdoors?
And that's the trick is, we can push things out citywide, but it's sometimes difficult if there's an interior conversation going on in a neighborhood that we're not necessarily part of.
Right.
Sometimes it's hard to get that information. And I don't want to sit there and say that I'm the expert on Nextdoor, because
Right.
that is Mr. Wright's
Right.
area of expertise. So she monitors constantly. But there are some challenges sometimes the way the neighborhoods are divided up and getting access. Now we can push something out, citywide, but again, sometimes getting those conversations between two houses in P section can sometimes be a challenge to get a hold of that.
Okay. Now, as far as pushing things out citywide, I don't recall seeing anything. I know I do get information on Nextdoor from District 2, but that's county.
Right.
There's I forgot his title, but there's a gentleman down there, when they have the District 2 meetings, he will alert me to the fact that there are District 2 meetings. So hopefully we can do that with the police department as well. For example, I know we send it out on the alert system when you do the drug take back. Mm-hmm. So there may be some other uses that we can do with pushing it out through Nextdoor neighbor.
I will check with Bethany on that to make sure I'm not misspeaking here.
Okay. And then I also want to thank you for having Deputy Chief Preston to attend the Devonshire meeting that we had back in September. I think it was September the 18th. There was some valuable information that was ascertained. I had them at the homeowners, the board of directors meeting. In fact, we met here at City Hall. And some of the things that we learned, because we also had the code compliance come in, and I guess most folks don't realize that code compliance, I know that's not you, but you work hand in hand, is actually operational 7 days a week. I think most people are thinking that it's a Monday through Friday operation, but that's not the case. As a matter of fact, they are open, I believe it's from 7 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Saturdays and Sundays, or something around there. But it's also good to know that we have this service that goes on. And then also was very thankful for Deputy Chief Preston, because he gave us the names of our 2 community services officers, so that we have an opportunity that we can contact them and we have their phone numbers, et cetera. So it was a very good meeting. The meeting was so good that we wanted to do it again, so we set it up again over at Cullerton Station. And hopefully we'll be meeting with you guys this Thursday over at the HOA annual meeting.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
sure.
Dr. Sankar?
Yes, I just want to say thank you for the comprehensive report. I've enjoyed my conversation with you and the Deputy Chief over the past few months. What we see nationally, law enforcement agencies have difficulty recruiting and retaining law enforcement. And so I think to see that we are growing and we have 3 incredible officers to join our force is to be commended. I think a big part of that is community policing, and it is a critical part of the success of law enforcement. And so reading over this, I was really pleased to see there have been 60 events that you've been to recently, 32 HOA meetings. The police ride-alongs are really impactful. So I want to thank you for that. With training, I'd be interested in perhaps a sidebar, not tonight, but to hear about the training, the close to 800 hours of training that the officers have gone through. A big part of the retention and hiring of law enforcement officers is about the stress. We don't talk about the stress of law enforcement, and so I was really pleased to see that our officers have gone through a crisis intervention training to address both mental illness and stress. So thank you. There's a lot of innovation going on. So with Ring, I understand the city had piloted a program where there is a rebate for Ring in the city. I'm not sure where that is.
We had discussed it and we had proposed it, and as I was saying earlier, it just wasn't able to make the final cut when we had to trim the budget a little bit.
Okay.
And we'll try again in 2021, and hopefully we'll, if it's not the same scale, maybe we'll get something going. Again, it all depends on the economics of things.
Okay. And this may be done on the police's social media, but perhaps some of these great tidbits that you've shared can be shared with the colleges, with the city's social media. So with Una Cooper, some of the great things like the security assessment at homes could be shared.
Certainly.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Well, let me just say this, perhaps for my last time for you. On behalf of everyone up here, I want to thank the leadership of the police department and the membership, working together as effectively as you do. You have become a source of pride in this organization. I've told you before, when I talk to mayors from across the state, some of them stay awake at night worried about their police department. And I tell them I sleep like a baby because I have so much confidence. We have so much pride in you because we know that you're going to do everything possible to keep this a strong, safe, welcoming, pleasant community. You've added a dimension to this community that we'll be forever grateful for. And just want to wish you and your membership best wishes, safe wishes. Keep your head down. Because like I say, you're a source of pride to the city. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.
Okay. Let me say too, I guess, just looking at your coin here, and the back side of this, the obverse, or reverse, I guess, is service with integrity. And I think that says it all. Thank you, sir. Okay, item next is approval of emergency ordinance 0819, repealing and reenacting Chapter 24, taxation. Before I can put this item on the table, I have to determine if there is unanimous support to put this on as an emergency bill. Is there agreement?
We need a motion for that?
I'm sorry.
There has to be a unanimous agreement to put this on the table as an emergency bill.
Well, I thought it was already on the agenda.
It is on the agenda, but to move forward on it, if I'm just, if it's filling an obligation, if there's no objection to moving forward on it, I will do that.
Okay. Council, could I have clarification on the distinction, please?
Yeah, so in order to waive the provisions of the charter that generally restrict your ability to enact an ordinance on the same night that it is introduced, you have to declare an emergency. And so you will see in the text of the recitals of the proposed ordinance, there is a statement of emergency, but that determination of the emergency needs to be unanimous. The ordinance doesn't need to be adopted unanimously, but the declaration of an emergency, that an emergency exists warranting the waiver of that provision, does need to be unanimous.
If that's the case, if the ordinance, once the vote is unanimous, then the vote on the actual ordinance, does that have to be unanimous as well?
No.
No. However, you could theoretically, if you were unanimous in the passage of the bill, that would resolve the emergency declaration issue. But I would suggest that you have those votes separately to determine that you have the required unanimity for the declaration of emergency before you move to the passage of the ordinance, because the ordinance could then fail when, in fact, it isn't the sentiment of the body that the ordinance itself is bad. It's just that it is the sentiment of the body that it ought to go through the regular process.
Thank you.
Is there any objection to going forward?
Yeah. You would need a motion.
You need a motion in a second.
Mr. Mayor, may I address one other issue before you do that in considering the ordinance, which is unrelated to the declaration of the emergency? You will have to forgive me. I owe an apology because in my effort to get this to agenda, there is an error in the title of the ordinance. It says that it is repealing and reenacting Chapter 24, when in fact that should read amending Chapter 24.
We move it on. Put it
So
on
we need a motion to,
Put it on the table.
okay, I'd like to make a motion to open discussion to put this on the agenda, and
It is on the agenda. The motion that is necessary would be a motion to declare an emergency exists sufficient to warrant the waiver of the intermediate period between readings.
make a motion to declare an emergency discussion on the issue.
I like to second that.
All right, been moved and seconded. Any question on the motion?
What is the emergency?
Just a matter of explanation of getting it on the schedule tonight.
I repeat my question. What is the emergency?
That is a question for the body to determine.
As far as I can say, this is our last public meeting to resolve an issue that's been floating through this council for the last 6-8 months. And you have an opportunity to resolve it one way or the other.
Why didn't we resolve it on July the 8th when a motion was made on June the 17th by Councilman Whitley, to table it until July 8th, and second by myself, and it never happened? Why is that?
I think I can explain that one. At that meeting, it was requested for the company to submit a payment plan and the payment plan was submitted by them on July 3rd. As you know, you never saw it. I don't think many of the other council saw it or staff, but it was submitted, yet we dropped the ball and never brought it back up. So it's just a matter of trying to take care of this issue when it's very important issue. The gentleman's having trouble getting his trader's license and looking at possibly shutting his business down.
Do you have any information on that as opposed to, because I don't have any information on the trader's license, so I don't know what the situation is he's in. If in fact the trader's license is being held up, does he have the trader's license? What does he need to do to have the trader's license? Why is the trader's license being held up? This is all information that I think should be coming to council so that we'd have the required amount of information so that we can make an intelligent decision.
So
I don't have that information.
Forgive me. So this ordinance doesn't obviously apply simply to that business. It is an ordinance to enact a credit for all automotive inventory, vehicles held as inventory for retail sale. With respect to the individual business that you're referring to, there is an arrearage. The entity owes the city taxes that have not been paid. And so, and that issue is not going to be resolved by the adoption of this ordinance because it is not retrospective. So those taxes will continue to be owed regardless of whether you enact this ordinance, which will not take effect until the next tax year.
But my question still stands. What is the emergency? I have not heard the answer to that. At least I don't think I have.
Again, I think I can answer that. The emergency isn't so much coming from our side as a council setting policy on a kind of a very gray area of a tax bill that was never intended to be applied in that form or fashion. And it was adjusted and overturned by the state, which is by a new bill. But the emergency is coming from the applicant. He's not contestant paying the taxes. He just wants approval of the payment plan that he's willing to submit and asking that the penalties be waived so he can pay the tax and get his trader's license and remain open. So the emergency would be coming from the sense that I guess this body kind of has control over a business surviving or failing in a decision, which I felt we should bring back up from that we dropped the ball in June and July.
Well, I don't think that discussion has been made until I made that discussion tonight, because I'm the one to pull through all the agendas for the entire year and show and saw what was written from the minutes from each one of the agendas that have been posted, and that's how I discovered it. And so I don't know that anybody else has mentioned that before tonight, so I'm not sure about that. I just don't know what his emergency is.
Okay, well, let me try one last thing. If we don't do this tonight, the earliest possibility to reconsider this would be probably in January, which I think would probably present some additional incredible hardship to this business person and may very well send his business down the drain. Now, if you were, I think it's I've said all along that I think the application of this tax is outside of what it was originally intended to be. I think it's unfair, and I think all those things, that's a separate issue. But I think it's a reasonable thing to put this on the table and have a discussion and call a vote on it. Because like I say, if you don't want to do that, that's your prerogative. But if we put it on the table, we can have that discussion. If we don't put it on the table, the earliest this business can be considered for any kind of relief at all will be next year. And I don't know what will happen to his business between now and then.
That's my question.
Okay.
And it hasn't been answered. I've asked 3 questions, and none of those questions have been answered. One of the questions is exactly what you just articulated. It still hasn't been answered. So I don't know what's going on.
Mr. Mayor.
Question. Mr. Mayor, Mr. Walker has the question.
I see 2 issues here.
That was
One is the matter that is associated specifically with the proposal we have tonight, which is about future taxes. And this is not what I understood the conversation to originally be about. But this piece of legislation is about what would happen in the future, and I don't see it as an emergency because the tax change doesn't occur until the next tax year. There's a separate issue of where we are with an individual who has an issue with taxes and payment thereof that needs to be resolved to everybody's best interest to preserve their ongoing, value to the city as contributing members of the business community. But that's separate from this legislation, which is future facing, not with anything to do with the issue about the arrears.
Okay. Point made.
If you can give me a legitimate reason that I can grasp, I would be comfortable, but no one has offered me a reason to the 3 questions that I've asked, and they've all been
Well, I've
pretty much the same.
tried, and apparently I've not reached a level of satisfaction with you. All right. You have, okay, I got your point. All right, the question is, you have a motion on the floor to move it forward as a thing. You'll call for a vote on the motion. All in favor?
Aye.
You're a no? You're a no? I'm a yes?
2 yeses.
You're a yes? No. Motion fails. All right. That ends that discussion. All right, guys.
Mr. Mayor? It ends the discussion of whether it's an emergency, but it can still be introduced.
Right.
You would strike the emergency clause, and then it would come back at your next council meeting for a reading.
That was what I was going to ask. My question would be, since my questions haven't been answered tonight, if we can get enough information to the council by the 18th of November, which is the next scheduled meeting, I think that would make much more sense. But I don't know, why are we voting on something that the majority of the council, we heard, haven't seen it, we don't know what's in it.
Well, because on the 18th,
All right.
it's going to be a new council that has no information or anything on it.
Okay,
I
well,
thought you come in, the way we've done it the last 5 times, is you come in on the day of the election, the sitting council sits in there, then it's opened up by the sitting council. The sitting council then turns it over after the swearing in to the new council. So we
Okay,
will be
gentlemen.
meeting again on the 18th.
gentlemen, we've had a vote on this, the vote's done. Mr. Gardner?
Yes.
Wait a minute, before you do, I got 2 quick announcements I want to make. First off, on behalf of the council, we want to wish our best wishes to Ms. Lorraine Levan. We know she's been having some challenges, medical challenges. We want you to know, to explain to her that she's in our thoughts and prayers. She's an incredible lady, married to an incredible gentleman, and the mother of an incredible lawyer. So we wish her well, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Last item, I'm going to say this is my last meeting after a bunch of years. And I want to thank you guys. We've had some agreements, we've had some disagreements. We've gone along fairly well. I think, well, I'll have a chance to make some comments at the next meeting on the 17th. Those of you that are going to go off into the sunset and retire with Dr. Trout, Mr. Marcos, and me, I hope we all have a grand time. Those of you that have a contest in front of you, good luck to you. And Mr. Gardner, if you want to move us out of here.
Good question. Do we want to be that stubborn that if this is so important to that dealer, do we want to be so stubborn that we will not entertain getting some information to the council by November the 18th?
We can do that. Would you present a summary of everything that's happened in this matter and have it delivered to the council for this meeting on the 17th? 18.
Certainly,
Okay.
Mayor, I would just add that the motion that was made to table in July.
17th, that's a special meeting, though, right? We won't be able to do it that night. You have to, because it's a special meeting.
It's a special meeting. We usually don't conduct at the swearing-in ceremony any type of big businesses with public hearings and that
Okay.
type on that night. So the first official council meeting that would take place where you would have this or public hearing for this item would be November 25th.
Can I add 2 things? Because it's a special meeting, I will not be in attendance because I have a conflicting meeting. And I just wanted to add in response to the one question that Councilmember Trout had, which I think had to do with the question of why the motion in July hadn't been complied with, but the motion to table was to allow time for staff to obtain tax information from the dealership. The discussion was in fact about how you could determine certain things, right? So, and that information was in fact given to council. I know that we discussed it. So I know you have a number of other questions, but I wanted to resolve that one now.
So you think, so we need to have a motion to table to the date specific?
No,
Oh.
That was the motion in July I was talking about. Tonight, if you introduce it in ordinary course, it will come back at your next regular business meeting.
Yeah, put it on the next meeting.
25th.
Okay. Anything else? Mr. Gordon?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And before I close out, I just want to say it's been a pleasure serving with you these past 8 years, Mr. Mayor. A pleasure. And as well as to my friends, Jimmy Marcos and Dr. Trout. I'm going to miss the three of you. I may miss you all. But right now, officially, I'm going to miss the three of you. It's been enjoyable. It has been. All right. I'd like a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second by Dr. Trout. Any questions on the motion? All in favor? Good night. God bless.